There are moments in life when everything around us seems to crumble. Goals that once felt so clear become hazy, and the things we pursued so passionately lose their shine. Who hasn't asked themselves in a moment of doubt, am I really living the life I want? Or am I just following a script that isn't mine? These questions don't arise by chance. They echo a deeper truth, a call that resonates within us, inviting us to look in the mirror and face the one person who truly matters on this journey, ourselves. Carl Jung, one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century, said that life truly begins at 40. Not because the years before that are without value, but because the earlier years are like a training ground, a time for learning and building our identity. But what if I told you that discovering yourself has no age limit? What Jung referred to as individuation can happen at any stage of life, as long as we're willing to confront our own masks and shadows. Finding yourself isn't a magical event or an instant epiphany. It's a process that often begins with small discomforts. It might be the unease of a monotonous routine, a worn-out relationship, or the nagging sense that you're living on autopilot. As uncomfortable as it may be, this discomfort is also a gift. It forces us to question the narrative we've been telling ourselves, to revisit the choices we've made, and to see that maybe we're walking a path we never truly chose. But how can we tell if we're on the right path? And more importantly, how do we start creating a path that is genuinely ours? This video is an invitation to reflect on these questions together. Let's explore what it means to create a life that isn't just lived, but truly felt. A life where every step brings us closer to who we really are. Imagine that each of us carries a mask. It's not a mask for disguise or something used to deceive, but rather a representation of the expectations the world has of us. This mask, which Carl Jung called the persona, acts as a kind of social armor, something we develop early on to navigate life's complexities. It's how we present ourselves to the world, shaped by influences like family, culture, religion, and environment. In our early years, we are like sponges, absorbing beliefs, values, and behaviors that help us gain acceptance and appreciation from those around us. We are praised for behaving in certain ways, encouraged to pursue specific paths, and often pressured to suppress parts of ourselves that don't fit the mold. Over time, the persona strengthens, becoming not just a tool for adaptation, but, for many, an invisible prison. Jung believed that this construction was necessary. Without the persona, it would be impossible to function in society. It provides us with the tools to build careers, establish relationships, and fulfill responsibilities. However, as time passes, this mask can begin to suffocate us. We start confusing the persona with our true essence, believing we are only what we show to others. And this is where the cracks begin to appear. These cracks often surface during moments of crisis. Perhaps you're living someone else's dream. The career your parents idealized for you, the relationship that seems perfect in your friends' eyes, or the lifestyle that follows society's rules. On the outside, everything appears to be in place, but on the inside, there's an overwhelming sense of emptiness. This happens because the persona, no matter how polished it may be, cannot reflect the entirety of who we are. As we grow older, the discomfort with this mask can intensify. The persona that once seemed so effective begins to limit our growth. We find ourselves stuck in roles that no longer represent us. Like the successful professional who is burned out, the loving partner who has lost the connection, or the friend who always says yes out of fear of rejection. The question that arises at this point is, who am I beyond this mask? This marks the beginning of a quest for authenticity. It is the moment we realize there are parts of ourselves that have been left behind, hidden beneath the mask of the persona. To find ourselves, we must summon the courage to question this construction, to look beyond external expectations, and to explore what truly matters. Uncovering who we are behind the persona is not simple. It requires facing judgment, letting go of old beliefs, and often disappointing those who expect us to keep playing the roles we've always played. But it is also a liberating journey, because it's only when we start peeling back the layers of the persona that we can begin to glimpse what truly defines us. Freeing yourself from your persona is just the beginning, because when we take off the mask, we realize there is so much more to us than we ever imagined, and not all of it is comfortable to face. Jung referred to this uncharted territory as the shadow. It's that part of ourselves we hide, repress, or pretend doesn't exist. It's the fears we avoid, the desires we're ashamed of, and even the strengths we underestimate. The shadow is everything we'd rather push aside, but it never truly disappears. Why are we so afraid of our shadow? Perhaps because from an early age we were taught to show only our best side. Who hasn't heard things like "don't cry, be strong," or "that's not acceptable"? Over time, we learn that certain emotions like anger, sadness, or insecurity aren't welcome. So we lock those parts of ourselves away in an emotional basement, believing that if we don't look at them, they'll simply cease to exist. But what we ignore doesn't go away. It merely waits for the right moment to resurface. Facing the shadow is uncomfortable because it forces us to confront our contradictions. We can be generous, yet selfish, brave, yet full of fears. We want to be loved, yet we fear rejection. These conflicting parts of ourselves are frightening because they challenge the idea of who we think we are. But as Jung suggested, it is only by accepting our shadow that we become whole. Facing our shadow is not an act of defeat, but one of courage. Imagine someone who finally admits they are afraid of failure. This person might discover that behind this fear lies a genuine desire to grow, or someone who recognizes their envy may realize it reflects something they wish to achieve. The shadow, as frightening as it may seem, is an opportunity for self-discovery. When we confront it, it stops being a hidden monster and becomes an integrated part of who we are. It's important to remember that this process is not something we have to do alone. Often, sharing our vulnerabilities with trusted people or seeking support from a therapist can make the journey lighter. After all, the shadow gains strength in isolation, but loses its power when brought into the light. Accepting our hidden parts doesn't mean we are fixing something broken within us. On the contrary, it's an acknowledgement that we are human, with light and darkness coexisting inside us. And by embracing these parts, we discover a freedom that goes beyond any external approval. It's the freedom to be who we truly are, without masks or filters. Confronting our shadow places us at a crucial point in the journey of self-discovery, the process of individuation. Carl Jung described individuation as the path to becoming whole. That is, the integration of all parts of ourselves, light and shadow, reason and intuition, persona and essence. It is the moment we stop trying to be what the world expects and start becoming who we truly are. But what does it mean to awaken the true self? Simply put, it means stepping out of autopilot and beginning to live with intention. It's about uncovering what truly matters, beyond the layers of expectations we've accumulated over the years. This process is not linear and rarely unfolds smoothly. In fact, individuation often begins with a crisis, the feeling that life has lost its spark, that we're stuck in a repetitive cycle, or that our once cherished goals now seem hollow. These crises can be terrifying, but they are also invitations for profound change. It's as if life is asking us to pause, look inward, and ask ourselves, who am I, really? And more importantly, what do I truly want? The answers to these questions are not found in success manuals or in well-meaning advice from others. They lie within us, waiting to be discovered. Individuation doesn't mean we have to reject everything we've built so far. On the contrary, it's a process of redefinition. It's about looking at our choices and understanding which ones were made out of fear or the need to please others, and which genuinely reflect our deepest values. It's a journey of reconnecting with our desires, dreams, and passions, often forgotten amid the pressures of daily life. As we become more aligned with who we truly are, we begin to experience a renewed sense of freedom. It's not the freedom to do whatever we want without consequences, but the freedom to live authentically. Decisions that once felt difficult, like changing careers, ending a relationship, or reassessing friendships, start to make more sense because they are guided by what truly nourishes us. On this journey, we also discover that being authentic doesn't mean being perfect. On the contrary, it's about embracing our imperfections as part of what makes us unique. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and whole, we realize that it's this authenticity that deeply connects us with others. It's not the mask of success or perfection that inspires, but the courage to be genuine. This awakening of the true self is transformative. Not because we become something we weren't before, but because we start living as who we've always been. It's a return to what is essential, to what is genuine and meaningful. Finding yourself and awakening your true self is not the end of the journey. It's the beginning of a life that finally makes sense. When we integrate all the parts of who we are and start living authentically, something remarkable happens. We find freedom. Not the kind of freedom we imagined in our youth where we could do whatever we wanted, but the freedom to live with purpose, to align our actions with what we truly value. Living with purpose doesn't mean having all the answers or following a perfectly laid out plan. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's about accepting that life is dynamic, full of uncertainties, and that our role is not to control it, but to make conscious choices that reflect who we are. It's about living in accordance with our values, even when it means going against the tide. Think about the feeling of making a decision that comes from the heart, rather than from the expectations of others. It might mean saying no to an opportunity that doesn't resonate with you, or finally dedicating time to something you've always wanted to do but postponed because it seemed impractical. These moments of alignment are liberating because they remind us that life isn't about following a template. It's about creating a path that is uniquely ours. This freedom, however, doesn't come without challenges. Living with purpose often requires letting go of ideas, people, or habits that no longer serve us. It's natural to feel fear during this process, fear of failure, of disappointing others, or of feeling lost. But it's important to remember that the freedom to be who we are isn't about the absence of difficulties. It's about the ability to face them with courage, knowing we're living our inner truth. When we live with purpose, our relationships also transform. We begin to attract people who share similar values, who inspire and support us. We become more selective with our time and energy, prioritizing what brings us joy and meaning. And in doing so, we realize that living with purpose isn't just about big transformations, it's about the small, daily choices that reflect who we truly are. Another important aspect of this freedom is acceptance. Living with purpose doesn't mean we'll never have doubts or difficult days. On the contrary, it means accepting that life is imperfect, yet still profoundly meaningful. When we embrace this perspective, we stop seeking happiness in external outcomes and begin to find it in the simple act of being present, of staying true to ourselves. This is the beauty of living with purpose. Every step, no matter how small, becomes a reflection of who we are. And when we look back, we realize that the decisions that once seemed difficult led us to a life that truly feels like our own. Not because it was planned or idealized, but because it was lived with authenticity. When we free ourselves from external expectations and start living aligned with our purpose, we realize something transformative. Our life is not just about ourselves. It has the potential to impact others, to inspire, and to create a legacy. This legacy doesn't need to be grand or revolutionary. It can be found in the small marks we leave on the world and on the people around us. Creating a personal legacy doesn't mean seeking recognition or fame, but rather living in a way that reflects our values and inspires authenticity. It's about the choices we make, the connections we nurture, and the meaning we bring to our actions. Often, the impact we leave on the world is invisible. It's in advice given with care, in an act of generosity, or in the courage to live a genuine life that serves as an example for others. Think of someone who has deeply inspired you. It might have been a mentor, a friend, or even an author whose words resonated with you. What made them so special wasn't what they owned or achieved, but how they lived with integrity. These individuals left a legacy because they stayed true to who they were, and that made them unforgettable. When we choose to live this way, we create a similar impact, even without realizing it. This legacy also reflects in how we face adversity. Life will never be completely free of challenges, but what truly matters is how we choose to respond to them. By confronting our fears, embracing our shadows, and living with purpose, we show others that it's possible to do the same. It's a way of telling the world, no matter how hard it gets, you can find strength within yourself. Creating a personal legacy also means accepting that it will continue even after we are gone. Our actions reverberate through time, shaping the lives of those we touch. It can be as simple as teaching a child a lesson about self-love or sharing a story that inspires a friend. These small seeds grow and flourish, creating an impact that extends beyond our existence. In the end, a true legacy isn't about the material things we accumulate, but about how we live. It lies in the memories we leave behind, the connections we build, and the authenticity we cultivate. And the most beautiful part is that by living an authentic and meaningful life, this legacy naturally takes shape as a reflection of who we are. As we conclude this journey, I hope you feel inspired to look within, to embrace every part of yourself, and to begin or continue living the life you truly desire. Because life doesn't begin when we achieve something external, it begins when we find ourselves. That is the true starting point, a beginning that not only transforms our existence but also leaves a lasting mark on the world around us. Life begins when we find ourselves. This is the truth that resonates throughout this journey. It's not about a single moment or an endpoint, but a continuous process of discovery and acceptance. Along the way, we confront our masks, embrace our shadows, awaken to our true selves, and find the freedom to live with purpose. And when we do, we realize that the world around us also changes, and because our authenticity inspires others to discover the same within themselves. Each step on this path is an invitation to look inward and ask, what truly makes me happy? What drives me? How can I live a life that feels genuine to me? These questions, as simple as they may seem, hold the power to transform everything. They lead us to live not for approval or out of fear, but with the courage to be whole. This is the beauty of a life that begins with self-awareness. It's not perfect, but it's real. And by living authentically, we not only free ourselves, but also create a space for others to do the same. After all, when we are true to ourselves, the world meets us with more truth as well. I want to thank you for staying with me until now. This conversation is more than just a script. It's an invitation for us to reflect together on what truly matters. Speaking of which, I need to share a little story. Recently, while reorganizing my shelves, I came across an old notebook where I used to jot down random thoughts. Among the pages, there was a phrase underlined, "Life is what happens when you stop trying to be someone else." It hit me like a wave. It's so easy to lose ourselves in roles and personas we don't even realize we've created, but at the same time, it's liberating to know that it's never too late to start over. So, if this video resonated with you, I have a small request. How about liking, commenting, or subscribing to the channel? Yes, I'm breaking the fourth wall here. I know that like button seems like such a small thing, but believe me, it helps more people access reflections like this one. And honestly, knowing you're here with me is already a gift. Now, before you go, you'll see 2 suggested videos on the screen. I could tell you what they're about, but I'd rather leave a little mystery. All I'll say is that they dive even deeper into themes that, in some way, complement what we've talked about here. If you're ready to continue this journey of discovery, trust me, it's worth checking them out. Thank you for being here and for being part of this conversation. I'll see you in the next steps of this journey, whether it's through these videos or your own reflections. Until then, take care of yourself and keep exploring what it means to be you.